I've never asked a question like this before. Is it ethical for the wealthy to hire private firefighters during public emergencies? Is it ethical for the wealthy to hire private firefighters during a public emergency? Give me a quick yay or nay on the ethics of those who can afford it. It's the insurance companies as well, for reasons I'll explain. We like or dislike that idea. This was a story a couple of years ago because of Kanye West, Yee, and Kim Kardashian. And people were like, oh no, this is creating a two-tiered system. They're able to protect their home, but what about everybody else? Yay or nay on that? Thank you for liking and subscribing and setting yourself up for notifications for these YouTube conversations. Thank you as well to Parks Casino. This weekend, exciting weekend, especially, here in the Philly area, because 3 p.m. in Philly, the Birds are a 6-point home favorite in the conference championship, hosting Washington, the over-under 47.5. It's going to be a balmy, 40 or so degrees. Can't wait for that. And then Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, Kansas City, only 2-point home fave hosting Buffalo in the other conference championship. The over-under the same as the Philly-Washington game, 47.5. Futures bets. This is interesting. This tells you where the smart money thinks, or who they think is going to win it all. Philly is the favorite, meaning a $25 wager on Philly pays the least of the remaining four teams. It pays $46.25. $25 wager on the defending champs, Kansas City, pays slightly more, $52.50. $25 wager on Buffalo pays $65. If you're looking for the long shot and the big payout, that's Washington. $25 wager on Washington to win it all pays $200. Whether your team scores or not, get some skin in the game, have some fun. Bet Parks Casino, Play Gun Lake in Michigan, the only that I ever recommend. You can play blackjack, craps, poker, roulette, including with a live dealer, hot online slots, all while watching the game. If there's a timeout on the field, go have some fun. Make your downtime fun time. That's what they say. Download the app right now. Enjoy all the action and excitement from the casino at your fingertips. Bet Parks and PlayGunLake.com for details. You got to be 21. And in PA, NJ, or Maryland for Bet Parks, 21. And in Michigan for Play Gun Lake. It's a great weekend. It's a great, great weekend. Don't call my house on Sunday late afternoon into the evening, because I know right where I will be enjoying all the action. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So I maintain a grid, a spreadsheet for poll questions that I like. And oftentimes they're suggested by listeners of the radio program. When you vote on the poll question of the day, you can suggest your own. And with TC, we often talk about them. They're great fodder on radio, even if we never use them. I have had in the grid for a couple of days a story about the propriety of people or insurance companies, both individuals who are wealthy and insurance companies, hiring their own fire department. By the way, do you know this is the way it began? I mean, until Ben Franklin came along and formed the nation's first fire department, everybody had to protect themselves. But I've been reading stories that are raising ethical questions about this trend in California. One of the stories is posted today at the website and in the newsletter. It begins this way. Robert McKenzie is an assistant fire chief, but not the kind who works for your local fire department. As the Palisades fire bore down on Southern California last week, the private fire crew that he oversees headed out to help defend homes for their customers, insurance companies that offer wildfire protection to wealthy homeowners and others with the coverage built into their policies. Working with lists of high-risk properties provided by the insurers, the team from Capstone Fire and Safety Management aims to arrive at houses before a fire does. They make changes to the structure that will give it the best chance of survival. In a fire situation where the fire is getting close, they'll smear a fire protective gel on the side of the home and then get out. And this particular individual says 90% of what they do is fire prevention. Capstone, the story then says, is part of a growing and controversial ecosystem of private firefighting companies that have seen themselves thrust into the spotlight as some of the wealthiest neighborhoods in LA have gone up in flames. It includes firefighters directly contracted with government agencies, as well as those who work for insurance companies and directly for rich families and developers. So this has been the question that I've wanted to ask for a while. And as I watched last night, the latest developments from Thousand Oaks, an area I know pretty well, and I've been there many times, I thought now's the time to ask. Man, Southern California just cannot catch a break. The lead story from the Associated Press, as I come on air today, says firefighters fought to maintain the upper hand on a huge and rapidly moving wildfire that swept through rugged mountains north of LA and resulted in more than 50,000 people being put under evacuation orders or warnings. That's probably already dated information. But if you watched on television last night against a dark sky and just the speed with which that fire was moving, it was really sad and alarming. Okay, but now how about the propriety of people hiring their own? I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because the more I think about it, I mean, I'm mindful of the perception of a two-tiered system. Sadly, that's, life. I mean, that's a concert venue, right? Somebody's sitting way the hell upstairs and somebody else is going to be in the front row. And how is this different from private security? There's a story in the newsletter today about Joe Burrows, the Cincinnati Bengal quarterback, who is one of many athletes, professional athletes, who's been burglarized while plying his trade. In his case, it was I think a Monday night football game. It happened to Travis Kelce. It happened to Patrick Mahomes. I've told the story on air of driving by the house that I know is the residence of a 76er. And there's a car out front and there's a guy in the car and he's there 24/7 because these professional athletes have become targets for professional burglary rings. The story that we have in the newsletter today about Joe Burrows, this is a story about how they've arrested in Cincinnati 5 guys. They are Chilean. And they are believed to be part of a very sophisticated ring of, they call them, tourist burglars. They come into this country, mostly illegally, just to carry out sophisticated burglaries. Michael, what's this got to do with firefighting? Well, same principle. In other words, I don't begrudge the athlete whose house I recognize for having private security because he's at risk. Big property. I'm sure with a lot inside. He's able to afford it, so he does it. And although some might resent it, he's got a right to do it. The ball player. Why is it not the same in hiring his own firefighter? Or it's akin to somebody who sends their children to private school but is still paying the local taxes. I mean, in the case of the firefighters, those in Southern California, they're still paying their taxes that provide fire protection for everybody else. There's a question as to, well, can they tap into the hydrant? Well, yeah, they can tap into the hydrant. California law allows them to tap into the hydrant because after all, that homeowner is paying for the services for everybody. And one other argument I think that I would make is that when there's the devastation, such as we've seen in Southern California, that impacts so many homeowners, and it has such a huge impact on insurance pools and insurance rates, I think it's in everybody's best interest to protect whatever can be preserved. There's controversy surrounding the Rick Caruso is his name, the Republican candidate for mayor of LA who was defeated by Karen Bass because he's a wealthy developer. And in the affected area, Pacific Palisades, he owns a shopping center or a mall. I'm not sure which is the proper description. And same story. He hired his own protective service. His buildings are left standing. Well, that's good for the community. I mean, people might drive by and think like, well, why should this guy be protected when I lost everything? But it's in the community's best interest that he's still there, both because people can now get goods and services from the businesses that survived, and also because it's one less major loss for the insurance company that would have to be underwritten by all of us because of the nature of the insurance model. So that's my vote. Mine is a yes vote. Is it ethical for, I should have said the insurance companies as well, for insurance companies and the wealthy to engage their own private firefighters? Yes is my answer. Go vote at smerconish.com and tell me what you think on that. Can I also mention yesterday we had 31,000 and change votes on should presidents have pardon power? 52.91% said no. So it was very close, attributable to the hue and cry, largely, I think, to President Trump and the J6ers, although muted somewhat. You heard me perhaps say here that I thought President Biden, on his way out the door, 20 minutes, 22 minutes before he left office, pardoning 5 family members, I said on POTUS that he had done a favor for Donald Trump. I heard David Axelrod say exactly that yesterday. So it mutes slightly the criticism of Trump for what he did with the J6ers. But as I said yesterday, I think that Trump made a huge mistake with the J6ers in not distinguishing the violent from the nonviolent, and instead just giving a blanket protection to all 15 or 1,600. And I think it's wrong on the merits. I think it's wrong because it's going to come back to bite him. Ankush Kardori has a great piece in Politico that is also in my newsletter today, talking about the rate of recidivism generally among violent and nonviolent individuals. So you're going to see some of these folks again entangled with the law. One of them has already been rearrested on a gun charge, a guy in Florida. The personalities, Enrique Tarrio, Stuart Rhodes. Did you see these guys on the news last night? They're not going anywhere quietly. They're not going anywhere quietly, and they're not doing Trump a favor by being so accessible to the media. And now, I mean, Rhodes was at the Capitol yesterday. He was in the Capitol. He was meeting with at least 2 members of Congress and trying to lobby for others to get pardons. So it was wrong on the merits. These individuals are not going away. There will be more recidivism. That's my second reason. And my third reason is that it sends a horrible message to not only the J6ers, but also people who wish they were J6ers, and there are a bunch of them too, that they will believe, correctly or not, that Donald Trump is going to have their back. So I think it was, there's so much that is happening. It's a fire hose of information to keep track of what's going on in these first days of Trump 2.0. But this is the worst of it. To me, this is the no-brainer. This is the worst of it. Don't take my word for it. J.D. Vance last week said, not the nonviolent ones. So Trump has put them all in a bad position. Politically speaking, the only thing that might stop this from being an even larger issue is there's a lot of competing news. There's a lot of competing news, and it's hard to keep track of all the different things that are taking place, whether it's the border, whether it's DEI, whether it's the J6ers. There's just a lot of information to keep track of, and people don't have the bandwidth. And then you throw in the fire story, the NFL this weekend. It's a lot to juggle and manage. Great poll question, I think, and a unique one. We've never asked this question or anything like it before. Is it ethical? I'm looking up at the board. That's why I'm turning my head. Is it ethical for the wealthy to hire private firefighters during public emergencies? When less than 1,000 had voted, and now the number's in excess of that, it was running 60-40. And of course, I'm not going to tell you which way it was going. Thank you so much for being here. Will you like and subscribe and set yourself up for notifications? More on all of these subjects on radio today. See ya.